finally got planted into a tree. We stayed in for maybe 30 seconds, came back out, and practically all our trees were either broken or leaning over, and we started looking around. We found our paddle boat here.
When I first ran for the office, I said I was going to prioritize domestic violence and child abuse and juvenile cases, and that's what I'm going to continue to do. That's what I've been doing. That's what I've got to continue to do. The numbers of cases are just increasing in those categories, and they really affect people and their families so much that they've got to have priority.
A Duluth electronics store located in the Burning Tree Plaza had an expensive Epson laptop computer stolen on Saturday, June 4th, by an experienced shoplifting ring. After the ring checked out the store, a woman came in and diverted the attention of the security guard. Two men with her then went to the computer section where they had already picked out the unit they wanted. One of them put the computer under his shirt. They then browsed for a short time and left the business. The woman soon made a small purchase and joined her accomplices outside. Shoplifting is a continuing problem in the Northland, which affects not only the businesses, but the honest shoppers as well. We could stop a lot of the theft if we knew who the thieves were, or where they sold the stolen goods. Call Crime Stoppers and tell us what you know. You'll get a reward, remain anonymous, and everyone will benefit. Call 1-800-974-TIPS or 723-ENOUGH.
Swamp way back in the woods. And he never did do a lot of harm in the world. He just never did do no good. People didn't think too much of him. They all thought he acted funny. The old man didn't care about people anyway. All he cared about was his money. He stuffed it all down into mason jars and buried it all around.
The crews that will be going out all have to meet minimum training requirements, and so they're all trained, and I'm guessing that at least 50% of them have been out.
exists. And that's where you have a bipartisan, bicameral, mainstream agreement on how much and what kind of health care reform you can do this year in order to put the country on the course towards universal coverage. That's the bill that was reported out of the Senate Finance Committee last Saturday afternoon. The fact of universal coverage is
It started from a pretty small beginning in 1954 and has grown to where the Heart of the North Rodeo is one of the 100 top-ranked rodeos in the United States, one of the longest-running rodeos, continuous operating PRCA rodeos in the United States. And we'll draw cowboys this year from 24 different states.
Probably our most vulnerable point of all competition is in the chute, because you don't have any control over what the horse is going to do. Or
talk about balance, control, and trust of the horses that are underneath you.
We just play off the top of our heads, have a good time, because if people see you work, then they're not going to have a good time because they've been at work all day and they don't want to see somebody else doing it.
All right, come on home, Miss Kitty. Yeah. How about it for the dog, the monkey, and Shane Carson?
And then send everybody home with a smile. That's the main deal.
So cute. You're getting your picture taken. You're getting your picture taken.
She had one gray one and one black one, just black. Oh, jeez. No, I really don't, to be honest with you. So I can buy maybe a bale of hay. Oh, keep going. A bale of hay will last me about a week, you know, with the 5 that I've got now. And I can buy like
This new agreement with Minnesota Power is part of the cost reduction plan.
Well, the objective was to reduce by $1 per ton National's costs for electric power. We've reached that threshold. In fact, we've exceeded it, and we're delighted that we've been able to do that.
National Steel is one of Minnesota Power's largest customers. Huddleston says the length of the tentative contract shows that Minnesota Power and National Steel are in it for the long haul.
The 10-year agreement, of course, provides for a number of energy efficiency improvements over that time frame, and also some capital investments, reinvestment in the taconite production facility to make it more efficient and more competitive in its marketplace.
Negotiations between National Steel and Burlington Northern Railroad are now underway in Texas. The transportation contract is the next crucial step.
Past air shows have brought in about $4 to $5 million to the city, and we have seen crowds anywhere up to 50,000 people for the entire weekend. So it is a major event.
Because of the pricing of natural gas and the environmentally concerned conditions of natural gas, we think that it's going to really take off.
On my own here today, no reporter. So, well, first of all, gosh, what happened here today?
Well, I was in the Cloquet Parade, and just everything was going really well. I jumped up on the sidewalk to say hello to some people there, and I stepped back and happened to step right in a crack in the road, and hit the crack just wrong, so I turned my ankle, and I'm not going to be walking on it for a little bit.
Right now?
Charles has held that position for 16 years, about 6 or 8 years too many, and we're going to try to see if we can't move our state government a little bit in another direction.
What is his first name?
Immediate dust to me. Still, I would come out, and that's.
Talk about your negatives a second ago. You said you mentioned that as
a chance for a party endorsement in the future, or if you burn.
This has nothing to do with me. What's happening out there? No, it has nothing to do with me. You can see with the other candidates. I mean, not to see one political sign. In all of Minnesota, I didn't see one political sign. Okay, and the people that I talked to that are out raising money, they're telling the same thing. It's not there. And then United We Stand had a one day, I think at one of the Ramsey County Fair, one of those fairs. They expected, 1,000 or 2 people. There were more candidates than there were people in the audience.
Yesterday's decision to reduce traffic within the Boundary Waters canoe area is today's outrage for BWCA resort owners and outfitters. Forest officials insist the new plan will preserve the delicate balance of the BWCA and alleviate overcrowding, while at the same time continuing to provide profit for area owners.
The plan seeks to protect the wilderness, at the same time maximize the allowance of users. It is not an oppressive pursuit to restrict people inordinately.
The new plan starts by reducing the number of overnight camping groups from 382 to 280, a decrease of 27%. The maximum number of persons in each group has been changed from 10 to 9. This is up from the initially proposed number of 6. With the new plan, each group can only operate a maximum of 4 watercraft. Under the current plan, there is no limit to the number of watercraft a group can use.
We clearly utilized the 4,000 pieces of information we got from the public about how they felt about the draft decision. We used our professional judgment about what was out there on the landscape, what was happening to that resource, and then the various kinds of literature and research work that's been done over time to help us make the decision that we made.
The new guidelines, which are set to begin next year, will also require year-round permits, meaning summer permits will no longer be accepted.
But if you look at some of the studies, the David Lyme studies from the university more specifically, look at some of the studies that we do need to create less impact through numbers of people, but if not in too many restrictions, to have a better information and education of the user.
In the meantime, resort owners and outfitters intend to appeal the recent decision to the National Forest Service in Washington, D.C. However, it may be a difficult appeal. The chief of the National Forest Service can choose not to review the appeal. If this occurs, look for the courts to become involved. In Duluth, John Jetta, News 6.
Herman, Minnesota is bracing for women to come to town. It's what they wanted, of course, but they're getting nervous.
We'll get you close.
As the men wait for everyone to come to town, the TV crews have already appeared, turning the men of Herman into celebrities of sorts. But mostly, it's turned the town into one giant personals ad.
That I like to treat women as ladies and as equal and respect, and I am fueled by their appreciation for being treated like a lady.
I feel I got a good sense of humor. I'm very comfortable with my life. I'm not a half a person where I need another half a person to come and join with me to make myself a whole person. I'm a whole person all by myself. And if you know, if another whole person wants to get to know me, well, I think that's great, you know.
The fair opens this weekend for anyone looking for Mr. Right. Dirk Hines, News 6.
And it's with absolute delight that we all announced that the National Steel Plant will be reopening starting on the 14th of August, and by August 28th, the pellet plant will reopen. And I very much want to thank the new management of National Steel for their leadership and for their determination.
Oh, this day is great. It's not only a nice sunny day and a nice day out, but it's a nice day for everybody. It's like coming out of a tunnel, and there's the light, and it's beautiful.
Area merchants are also glad about today's news. They say their business has suffered in the past year.
But the people have been very conservative in their buying only the necessities, and I know this will pick up my business when people have more money to spend.
The community is way better now. It's coming back together now. It was like, now we can spend more money just fixing up the town with the National opening up.
Yeah, I'm pumped though. I know my dad will be happy, and we'll all be happy that way. And the whole town will be happy. So.
Bob Dreer and Joe Dudak.
Because I remember what happened when they shut down Butler, and they actually dynamite.
Begin their work. Eric Schulstrom is the right-hander.
That's good to have that one in the snowstorm up there.
Well, every city has got some kind of a little museum of their heritage. And so my people came here like in 1900 on both sides of my family. And my grandpas were both railroad engineers. And my father was a merchant in this town for 50 years. He was at a Marshall Well store. So it seems only right that we should get together something of our heritage here.
One, two, three. Can you cut now? You guys got to cut. Oh, they did it! Hooray!
The Silver Creek Cliff Tunnel is being called an engineering masterpiece. solving safety problems of Highway 61 while preserving the North Shore's natural beauty.
Before that first shovel of dirt was made, they made sure that the environment and the preservation of the geology, the special attention to the aesthetics of the North Shore of Lake Superior, and just the beauty of the North Shore in itself were also preserved.
Transportation officials say they're proud of how the project turned out.
We accomplished the environmental preservation and the safety at the cheapest price possible by using some real creative engineering. I think that these projects speak for themselves. And
more than 300 tons of dynamite were used to blast through the cliff, making it one of only 2 mined highway tunnels in the Midwest. Governor Arne Carlson says the tunnel is also a vital link between northern Minnesota and the rest of the country.
Some $7 billion of forestry products travel over these roads each and every year. And 40% of all the newsprint in America comes down Highway 61. But at the same time, it's also one of the most well-traveled and well-known and well-loved scenic routes in the United States.
A John Bear Grease sled dog team was the first to pass through the tunnel today, with a caravan of classic cars following behind, opening up the new gateway to the North Shore. Near Two Harbors, Gina Katzmark, News 6.
Let me explain a little bit about what we talked together this evening about ways to enhance and improve the performance of the healthcare activities. One thing that we should look at is what's happening in our country compared to others in terms of how we're investing.
William Gumtow was arrested on July 27th of this year after his neighbor Todd Goodwin was shot to death in this East Hillside apartment. A Ruger semi-automatic 9mm handgun was found wrapped in a shirt and hidden in the bushes near the apartment building. Gumtow was arrested a short time later. A box of bullets for the gun was found in his apartment. Gumtow's live-in girlfriend, Becky Murade, is the only known witness to the shooting, which she claims was in self-defense. She reported the shooting to police within minutes of another call to authorities from apartment caretaker William Saracen, who reported a man with a knife was threatening people in the apartment.
Heard some noise. I called up to Bill Gumtow's house and wanted to find out what was going on, and I thought they were arguing or something, and he said everything was fine, and next thing I know, Becky was down at my house knocking on the door. Oh, she asked me to call 911. Said there was a man out in the hall with a knife, so...
Gumtow could get up to 2 years in prison for this probation violation. The judge ruled there is probable cause to continue holding him in jail. His next appearance will be in federal court in St. Paul to determine his sentence on the probation violation. In the meantime, Duluth police are continuing their murder investigation and expect to bring charges of second-degree murder against him. In Duluth, Barbara Riles, News 6.
And there were at least 2 witnesses, maybe 3 that we talked to, that, and both of them traveled into the eastbound lane. Yeah, I think I saw one. This was a set of circumstances that all came together at the same time, but I do think that if Hike would not have been intoxicated, he probably would have been riding the bicycle on the right shoulder of the road where he should have been, and the accident would have been avoided. Statements and the officer statements.
Were there 2 squad cars in?
Other police officers and state troopers do many times every day. It's one of the things that makes this job a little bit difficult at times.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Don't you still get to get out in the field a lot?
Yes, we searched through the night, and then at 9:15 this morning, deputies found her by retracing her entire route on foot. Found the accident down in a ditch, found her down in a ditch with a three-wheeler on top of her.
My reaction is that we have to redouble our efforts to get our message out and not worry too much about any poll but the one on September the 13th. That's the only one that matters. And when the people speak, I'll be listening. In the meantime, just keep on jogging.
The Grand Rapids School Board wants to ask taxpayers in the district to approve a bond referendum for what they say are necessary improvements to the district schools. But voters have shot down such issues 4 times in the past 2 years, no matter what amount of money was on the ballot. Tonight, the school board will consider another approach.
The school board is discussing packaging it in a way that people would have possible choices as to what they'd like to vote for or against.
The newest plan comes in 3 parts. First, $14.5 million in improvements and technology for several schools in the district. Second, $11.7 million to replace Grand Rapids Middle School. And third, $5.7 million to build and remodel elementary schools. The first step must pass before the second and third parts could be approved.
I have no question the needs are there. It's just a matter of how it should be packaged so that the public, in fact, gets the most for their dollars and for their youngsters.
But opponents say there hasn't been enough public input.
We believe there are other options that need to be discussed and need to be brought forward. A number of us have done a great deal of work to do that and have been repeatedly turned down in that opportunity to bring forth these possibilities and proposals.
Tonight, the board will discuss its options and decide what kind of proposal, if any, will be put on the November ballot. In Grand Rapids, Gina Katzmark, News 6. Adama Brooks is undergoing therapy virtually every hour of the day. Family members, therapists, and home health care providers are working around the clock to help him recover from the tragic near-drowning accident last April at MacArthur West Elementary School. Adama was underwater for at least 10 minutes before being pulled from the water.
It came to where they sent us in and told us to say bye to him. And that was 4 days after the accident. And then the doctors told us that he would never open his eyes. He would never move a finger, a limb, or anything.
But Adama is progressing much further than anyone expected.
Today, he's moving arms and legs, moves his fingers, he squeezes our hand. He follows us around the room with his eyes. He turns his head. He's said no 3 times in a row. When speech therapy tried to feed him, and he didn't want to eat, he turned his head and said no 3 times.
Adama's family is very pleased with his progress, but the demand of around-the-clock care has taken its toll.
Adama takes about 3/4 of the day, and then we have maybe 5 hours, and we try to spend time with the kids, but it's usually we either have to run off someplace or we have to go grocery shopping. We take that time to do that kind of stuff and try to spend time with the other 2 kids.
Dealing with Adama's accident is emotionally draining as well. It's painful for the Brooks family to think about how Adama's 8-year-old life has changed.
We'd go camping. He loved camping. He loved the outdoors. He always climbed trees. He liked his bike riding.
I still come downstairs just hoping you'll get up and out of bed or say good morning or something. Sometimes it's hard.
But Lisa and Dana Brooks say they won't give up on Adama. They say he's a survivor making new strides every day. In Duluth, Gina Katzmark, News 6.
My increases for 95 were reflected in line item stuff that we're required to do. As an example, the county board is looking at establishing a new dispatch center. We need one. And part of the money to pay for a consultant to help us design and get the dispatch center built is in my 95 budget. And of course that increases it. You know as well as I do that we're becoming more and more violent. And I'm asking officers to go into situations that I don't think that I'm very comfortable with. Years and years ago, it was accepted as part of the job and we went and did it. But that's not the case anymore.
For many children at Lincoln Elementary, it's the same story, just a different year. Back to school usually means a few changes from year to year, and of course, the excitement of that first day.
Actually, our rules are going to stay pretty much the same, John, but we're looking at really focusing on interpersonal respectful behavior. We're going to really teach and model people being respectful of each other, period.
So we have no new rules, but we do have a new focus. Do I hear a motion for a new school? Anybody? Anybody?
This year we're planning to go to a new building, so it's all that excitement and all that fun.
All right, we have a new school. Wait a minute. A new school usually means graduation into a higher school of learning or relocation to another city. Not 300 children from both Lincoln and Nelson Dewey Elementary moving to one state-of-the-art elementary. But if that's the case, this calls for more excitement, especially you rookies.
It hasn't changed, John, over my many years, actually. The excitement of the 5-year-olds, and of course, even more so, I think, the excitement on the parents' part of bringing their children on the first day. It's a great thing to see. For example, our holiday program at these 2 schools will be the last one ever. So we're gonna probably be looking at celebrating that in a different way and involving maybe the community in a different way, and then preparing them to go on to the new place. So
So students from Lincoln and Nelson Dewey will have the fortune of celebrating the first day of school not once, but rather twice in 1 year. If some of us grown-ups, namely me, have forgotten what it's like on that first day of school, here's a small reminder. Books, name tags, even pencils. The sight of the first day of school really takes one back. I guess it's true what they say, the first day of school is the first day of the rest of your life. In Superior, John Jetta, News 6.
They will be headed to Redmond, Oregon, where they'll land, and then they'll be transported to a town by the name of John Day, Oregon, and they'll be working on a 4,000-acre fire on the Malheur National Forest.
Hi, Mom.
Hi. Hello. Keep hell out there. Oh.
They both said that they were not aware of the intensive search and the news media information that she was missing, and they didn't know anything about that until after she returned home to her grandmother's last night.
Thousands of refugees continue to leave Cuba on a daily basis, leaving because of impoverished conditions in their homeland, conditions many blame in part on the long-standing American trade embargo.
It's no wonder that there are economic problems in Cuba. We are largely responsible for them. To continue the blockade and wonder why people are leaving Cuba is bizarre.
Representatives of the Cuban-America Friendship Committee gathered this morning in Duluth calling for an end to the American embargo, which they say has crippled the Cuban economy. Last March, Pastors for Peace successfully delivered a shipment of aid supplies from the United States to Cuba. Andy Anderson and his wife Kathy helped with the March shipment, and they're planning to do it again in November.
We are looking for drivers, we're looking for supplies and things of that kind to be taken down, powdered milk, and Pastors for Peace is in a position to describe for anyone what kinds of things should be sent.
With the situation changing daily and negotiations underway, the future of U.S.-Cuban relations is uncertain at best. If negotiators are looking for input on what to do, the Cuban-American Friendship Committee has an opinion.
Talk about stemming the exodus from Cuba without talking about the embargo is like talking about the exodus from Hinckley without talking about the fire.
In Duluth, Ted Rowlands,
We need to talk about the embargo and end the embargo now.
My purpose today is to add a little balance to the reporting.
Gubernatorial candidate Mike Hatch is blasting his DFL opponent for proposing changes in the state sales tax law. The DFLer claims Tony Boza wants to expand Minnesota's sales tax to include clothing.
That sales tax on clothing is inappropriate. It's a regressive tax. People have to buy clothing. Families have to buy clothing for their children. It's inappropriate, and I oppose it.
The Boza campaign was quick to respond to Hatch's claim.
What Mike Hatch is once again doing is taking little things here and there that he's heard and making them a big deal. But Tony Boza, if you followed anything from what we're talking about, we're not raising taxes in Minnesota. He believes very strongly against that.
Minnesota is one of the few states without a sales tax on clothing. Some economists have argued an across-the-board reduction in the sales tax and its expansion to include clothing would actually cut taxes. It's an idea Boza says he's open to but not committed to. Despite the flap over the sales tax, Hatch and Boza do agree on one thing. Both say they want to focus their energies on reducing property taxes. Michelle Lee, News 6.
Duluth's National Guard Armory was the site of a homecoming Thursday night for several Minnesota firefighting crews. The teams had been fighting forest fires in Montana, but were sent home early because changing weather conditions have lessened the fire danger.
We're also disappointed that we didn't get to stick out the full 21 days. Unfortunately, weather conditions, rain, and the incoming snows determined us we had to be back here. We've seen a lot of devastation to Montana, unfortunately. It's a kind of a pity, but I guess that's the price of forest fires.
Even though the crews didn't get the chance to stay their full 21 days, their supervisors had the highest praise for their performance.
All the crews that were there performed very well. There were a few injuries and a few people had to be sent back for various reasons, but overall the crews did an excellent job while they were there.
10 fire crews from the Northland are still out west. Because the fires seem to be slowing, there are no plans to assemble new teams. In Duluth, Dave Anderson, News 6.
There's a changing emphasis in healthcare these days from the inpatient acute stay to an outpatient services. And with this remodeling and renovation, this puts us in a position to go forward and keep in step with where we believe the direction of healthcare is going.
Four days of rain has made the ground soggy and pushed brooks, creeks, and streams to the limit. The riverbeds as well as the ground can't hold any more water, so it didn't take long for last night's total of 7 inches in the Minong area to start reshaping the geography of Shell Creek, washing out roads and clogging drainage pipes.
That's a big one.
Two Minong school teachers were injured when a drain filled with rainwater fell through a classroom ceiling. Officials say 1,500 gallons of rainwater immediately poured in, washing school items right out a nearby entrance.
About 8:45 this morning, the pipes over in this area had so much water coming down from the roof at one time that the straps pulled away from the wall. Apparently in this particular area the straps are not as good as they should have been.
Students, teachers, and nearby contractors worked to quickly clean up the mess. By late afternoon, most of the floodwaters had receded. In Minong, Wisconsin, John Jetta, News 6.
their homecoming was such a joyous thing, not just for our family, but because it was a community effort. You know, the whole area decided that there was only one outcome of this story that they were going to live with, and that was the girls being returned home. And that happened, and we feel really happy to be a part of that.
Swarovskis.
That's what you need, huh, to be a bird watcher? $5.
Oh, I see it. Boy, it looks like a Sharpie way up there. Couple, 3, 4. Oh, that's on the floor, right? We're having a good time. Girls don't want a picture. Come on, guys. You got a nice one.
Well, I'm going to head out to church, I guess.
Okay.
Thank you.
You
Have
bet.
a nice day now.
Very nice to meet you. Maybe we'll catch you on your way back through.
Well, I hope so.
We vowed when Amy was killed that she would not be just another statistic. And the shoes that are represented here by everyone, they are not just another statistic. And when our legislators and our government people see this, they would know they're not just another statistic.
It's very difficult, more so than the first time, much so. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Not every one of the barrels that have been sampled so far contained the slag materials that were found to be toxic. So then a question that you would have to ask is, if you were going to remove the barrels, would you remove all 1,400 of them?
Specifically, it's I'm telling the police chief and fire chief that they now have $100,000 to work with. Or we get bumped out of doing these improvements this year. I thought it was going to be. I just want to continue to do my job, and I'll be honest, Derek, I don't know what I'm going to do in 7 months. But I tell you, people are sure spending a lot of time trying to find out. And if I knew, I'd tell them.
We accept that in a case like this, the evidence is just so difficult, the charges are so serious, and the law itself is so complex and difficult that it is perhaps difficult to expect any jury to come to a verdict on it.
No, we're right where we expected to be, and we were very, I think, enthusiastically happy about where we are right now in the polls, and we're just really beginning in earnest this campaign.
Excellent movie.
Yeah, new #1 movie for Star Trek.
It was the best Star Trek movie I've ever seen.
It was fantastic, amazing, astonishing.
What made it so fantastic?
You have to see it.
I don't want to spoil it, but there are a few surprises. It was good.
Both captains got along well, were a good team effort. Both got the bad guy.
I liked all of it, actually.
Would you see it again?
Yeah.
Data deserves an Oscar for his performance.
So we're just really grateful that they're home and really grateful to have an opportunity with the community to celebrate with them, dance with them, and let them dance with our kids. And I really don't know if there's two more grateful people on earth than Lance and I right now. And
the controversial videotape shows wolves still alive and struggling after traps set by Alaska's Fish and Game Department failed. Steel neck snares are designed to strangle the wolves, but heavy snow pushed some of them out of position, catching the wolves' legs instead. 3 were found injured on Tuesday by a wildlife photographer who works for animal rights groups.
The leg is chewed right off here.
Their suffering was apparently made worse when a state worker needed 5 shots to put an injured wolf out of its misery. 685 neck snares are set in a 4,000 square mile area south of Fairbanks. Alaska is trying to cut the number of wolves in half to boost the caribou population. But opponents say there is no scientific reason to kill them. Since last year, 122 wolves have been eliminated at a cost of about $200,000. Alaska's new governor takes office Monday and says he will reevaluate the wolf control program. Kelly O'Donnell, NBC News.
Now it's 2 strips, 2 rolls of duct tape. Duct tape your mic to the table here so it doesn't move in case the table gets moved.
Good idea, Tim.
Yeah, thanks, Jim.
Was created roughly 9 years ago for the sole purpose.
The most beneficial part of our financing program has really been the 1200 fund loan. The interest rate is such that the taxpayers wind up with no loss to their money because it's not a depreciated loan. You're paying some interest, but in an era where interest rates are 10% and getting worse, to have this loan and amortize it back as you go is a wonderful deal for a starting out business.
But I guess we should have spent the money because I completely forgot to heck, please.
Today, still more than 1,000 men are entombed in the USS Arizona. At Pearl Harbor, we have collectively 3,700 men that are still on guard, 3,700 men that are still on watch, and over 1,000 men in the Arizona that are still on patrol.
I don't want to be kept artificially alive.
Have it over with, if it's going to be over with anyway.
If you don't have a will, nobody knows what you want.
In 1989, the Minnesota legislature gave people the right to decide how they would be treated in their final days of life. The living will tells healthcare givers what care to give a person when they're in a terminal situation and can no longer let people know what they want.
We now have the ability to keep the body alive for years and yet have no, as far as we know it, no life in that body. And people seem horrified by that. And these documents are what give them the control, the ability to avoid that.
But the living will doesn't cover every situation. To have better control of your final days, you need two documents, the living will and something called the healthcare power of attorney. That names a person to be your proxy and work with your doctor if you get to a point where you can't make your own medical decisions.
There is a well-understood principle in healthcare called the principle of autonomy. That means that we are responsible for making decisions regarding our own health care. Those are a right that we have. The living will and the healthcare power of attorney are opportunities to extend that principle of autonomy beyond the point where we can no longer make those decisions for ourselves.
While having a living will doesn't guarantee a peaceful death, not having one can be harder on the family and the patient.
We had two of our relatives, one in his side of the family, one in mine, who did not have the living will, and they just suffered needlessly, I thought.
It's difficult to imagine death when there's still so much living to do, but doctors and attorneys alike agree the time to make decisions about death is now. In Duluth, Barbara Riles, News 6.
We had a workshop that didn't get touched, but I built.
Age 10 to 84. Great Dr. Howard Hovey.
Council, many members of the Duluth Area Chamber of Commerce, and 60% of, in this instance at least, Mayor Doty.
When was he planning to have the financing together and stuff? And I want to add this on because it's really important to me. And
I would demand that the administration put together a joint meeting between DETA and the City Council and Mr. Brown as soon as Brown can come to Duluth. Those of us that are feeling uncomfortable with the position you've put us in, that we can build, as Councilor Wheeler says, that trust relationship.
Even the
not an insignificant amount of water.
The sump pump issue, as it's been labeled, has been a controversial one. The problem occurs when we get heavy rains. Extra water flowing into the sewer system is more than it can handle. The runoff, including sewage, often ending up in local streams, creeks, and even Lake Superior.
The public health concern is probably a greater concern. We have places in Duluth along the Lake Walk, in residential neighborhoods along Jefferson Street, where sewage overflows. It's mixed with rainwater, but it's still sewage. And you have animals, you have children, you have people who are coming in close contact with sewage, and that's something we've tried to avoid now for decades.
What the whole issue came down to is, should the city of Duluth require residents to install sump pumps to keep rainwater draining from their homes to the sewage line? The city council originally said yes, but public opinion against was strong, and in September the city council decided to rescind their vote, sending the matter back to the Doty administration. Now Channel 6 News has learned the task force has found there may be a better solution here than the sump pump.
Oh, there certainly is. And in fact, you'll find out that sump pumps are not the solution. And I think a lot of people would be glad to hear that. There are many, many ways of getting around sump pumps.
Another point the task force will likely make is that commercial buildings in downtown Duluth are also a big part of the problem.
And we found that there were many businesses downtown that were not disconnected. And they will, the city has assured us in their report that they will be disconnected. They're part of the problem, and they're also going to be part of the solution.
Along with the ringing of cash registers, this is the sound of holiday shopping in America. The red kettle, the bell, and in Superior, Margaret Olson. At 91, she's been ringing for the past 56 years. Margaret is one of thousands of volunteers that stand out in the cold to help raise money for the Salvation Army.
Good morning. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Emil Anderson can be found outside the Target store in Duluth. He's been volunteering for the past 7 years. A Duluth native, Emil now lives in Grand Rapids, but each year he makes the trip to Duluth to visit friends and to ring the bell.
I wouldn't trade this for anything.
Eric Gronquist volunteers for the Salvation Army at the Miller Hill Mall. He runs the gift wrapping center. Eric is there for the Salvation Army each year because when he needed it, the Salvation Army was there for him.
A few years back, I had gotten very ill with the liver disease, and the Salvation Army came to my aid, and they were the only community service that would help me. And they put me through their transitional housing program, and
now Eric owns his own business, Superior Productions, which he shuts down for 6 weeks during the holidays to help the Salvation Army. Volunteers is what drives the Salvation Army here in the Northland and around the country. For some, like Eric, it's a chance to give something back. For others, it's just a chance to give, year after year.
I hope they can make it a cure, because the good Lord lets me do it.
In Duluth, Ted Rollins, News 6.
Oh, I think we're just more than excited. I think we're probably ecstatic.
He stuck in the forest, always creating the jobs.
And the IRRB. So that's a very quick chronology payment of the earlier MAC loan of $270. This agreement, and finally in November of 91, December actually 91, that we
There you go. Tell your parents, 6 o'clock tonight, you guys can be on television.
The Phoenix building had several fire code violations at the time of Wednesday's fire. No sprinklers in the basement, housekeeping problems, rubbish collecting in the basement. According to fire officials, problems like these are common in most buildings in downtown Duluth. Despite Wednesday's fire, enforcement of the code is not likely to change.
Probably 80% of our buildings in Duluth, we could have enough major violations and expense that could possibly financially put these people out of business, and that's something that really our city doesn't want to do.
Fire Marshal Dave Matson says there is pressure on the fire department not to enforce the code because of a fear of putting merchants out of business. But fire officials say this is a frustrating problem they've tried to deal with for more than 10 years with little success. Sprinkler systems in commercial buildings are required only in the basement. This building didn't have them at all, and fire investigators say that if it did, the building likely would have been saved.
But if it would have had full sprinklers throughout the building, the fire would have probably not got out of the rear of the building.
So that would have made a significant difference.
Oh, much more, yeah, there would have been very little damage done, probably some water damage, but the fire would not have spread throughout the rest of the offices.
So far, no arrests have been made, but several suspects have been interviewed, including a number with arson convictions. But investigators say they need more information and are asking anyone who may be able to help to call the fire office at 723-3208. In Duluth, Bill Lund, News 6.
And also we thought maybe if it was a little bit cold outside that people might want to come inside and skate, but as you can see, it's just the opposite of that. It's all actually too warm outside to skate, so it's working out just great.
What? Can I put this down? Baby. A baby. Is that baby? Where's Barney? Where's that Barney? Find the cars. What? Can I put this down?
This man is nothing other than a terrorist, and he cannot be permitted any form of satisfaction, neither he nor his like. And no one is going to settle moral arguments by violence in Massachusetts. And the last thing I would say is that nobody's cause was advanced today.
car.
Try to stay out of the bars.
To make no more resolutions because they never work.
My New Year resolution is to stay in school.
To live long and prosper.
To get strong.
Quit smoking.
Okay, we're rolling, so get your names first. All right. W-E-L.
I have no intention of seeking a third term. There are some who have speculated I might, and there are some who have tried to encourage me to run, but my mind is made up.
The old summer adage, naming the humidity and not the heat as the culprit in spoiling a person's comfort, can also hold true in the winter. With a couple of changes, the phrase would read, "It's not the temperature, it's the wind chill." In fact, a wind chill greater than 25 below zero poses a real threat of frostbite within minutes to exposed skin. Wind chills greater than 50 below zero usually carry a time frame of seconds for frostbite to occur. There is good news. Even though it felt like 50 below to humans this morning, it only felt like the actual morning temperature of 19 below to your car. Unfortunately, a number of Northland cars refuse to start even at 19 below zero.
We've had quite a few this morning, but it hasn't been as busy as it normally is, but it just has to get colder for a few more days.
With little, if any, snow to insulate the ground, the cold temperatures can also wreak havoc on water mains. As the water inside the pipe freezes, it expands, and eventually the pipe bursts. It's these kind of cold weather headaches that keep some do-it-yourselfers very busy.
We do get some calls. I just had someone that called that said their father-in-law tried to take care of a problem they were having and asked if we could please come over and take care of that now.
And the pros even busier.
Say the frozen pipes people are calling on and the heating problems as far as their heating systems not keeping up with the cold and colder in some rooms and the heat just not generating to each room.
The average low temperature in Duluth for January 4th is 1 below, and if you think this is a random occurrence, think again. Last January 4th, the temperature sank to 16 below zero, and the wind chills briefly topped the 50 below zero barrier. Let's hope there isn't a pattern setting up here. In the soon-to-be warming Twin Ports, John Jetta, News 6.
Floated in the birch bark canoes across Lake Superior. This is where it all began. This was the first contact of the Chippewa Nation with the European. It was the one time in our history that it was a very compatible time.
What we need to do is we need to find somebody that's willing to front the issue for us, which is to say that I will assure the government that $2.5 million will be available to this project in the form of a bond or a letter of credit from a private sector.
In this location, you know, we will be running pockets. We were on our way to our next location to be in Fargo, North Dakota. In passing through Duluth, we saw a lot of things. We saw an exciting city that was looking at growth and looking at other things other than just the norm that we find in our other locations.
Always have to resort to violence. We wanted to commend the juries for taking the time to sort through all the evidence and the testimonies and come up and render a fair verdict. We think that sends a message that our community does have a sensitivity level to violence and that we will not tolerate it. I think that I also wanted the youth to know that there was this young man in the car apparently that jumped out of a car, a moving car, when this incident happened to avoid being.
Trying to do your job, trying to get the prices down, place, a marketplace where you can say to people that buy a number of gallons.
I know that the citizens of Duluth seem to be paying higher for gas. And if that means that they're being ripped off, then maybe we can agree on that term. But I can't tell you that that there's anybody who is identifiable who is doing this. I mean.
As I was approaching the airport, I saw the airplane circling, and it looked to me like he was having trouble. And the pilot chopped one of his engines, and then right at the end of the runway, chopped the other engine and came in with no power, and with his landing gear up, and slid down the runway very smoothly.
There was a time when owning a home was practically an American birthright. But with home prices skyrocketing and income shrinking, more and more Americans are being forced to settle for renting. For Rhonda Cooper, that wasn't good enough. She wanted to be able to put down more permanent roots for herself and her kids.
I figured they should have a place they can call home. And we've been in apartments since they've been born.
Through the arrangement of low-cost loans and financial education, NeighborWorks and the Duluth Neighborhood Housing Service are making it possible for Rhonda and others to buy homes in the Central Hillside. Only 26% of people who live in that part of Duluth currently own their homes. Spokespeople say home ownership is not only good for families, it's also good for neighborhoods and communities as a whole.
By increasing the number of homeowners, you're increasing the number of stakeholders, people who have a real investment in that neighborhood, in that community, people who are there for the long term.
Recently, Duluth was ranked among the top 10 in the nation for having affordable housing. And while many of those affordable homes are in the Central Hillside, many are so run down that obtaining financing for them is nearly impossible. At a conference in San Francisco this week, NeighborWorks developed a plan to solve that problem. Duluth Director Nancy Anderson talked with us via satellite.
One of the issues that we have found at Neighborhood Housing Services is that it is vital for us to have a purchase with rehabilitation program in Duluth because of our preponderance of aging housing stock.
NeighborWorks has arranged a deal where mortgage companies will allow people to buy homes and fix them up, all with the same loan. Program leaders say this is a deal where everyone in the community wins. In Duluth Central Hillside, Barbara Riles, News 6. Okay. Stand up.
The United States is considered a leader in medical research and state-of-the-art technology, but because of what some say is a slow-to-move Food and Drug Administration, many treatments available in other countries aren't available in the U.S. In fact, it takes an average of 3 times as long to get something approved by the FDA. An example is this simple sensor pad used to detect breast cancer lumps. It's been mired in the FDA's approval process for 9 years now. It was made available in Canada in less than 90 days.
I think it's of the utmost importance that the people at the FDA who are in charge of these projects look only at the safety and the efficacy of these devices, because that's ultimately what we're dealing with here. Is this device or is this technique safe to use in a patient?
Along with caring for cancer patients, Dr. Tom Elliott conducts research at the Duluth Clinic. He's been frustrated at times by the FDA, but believes the problem is getting better.
I've seen improvement over the last 5 years. There's been some streamlining of the process, and drugs are coming forward faster than they were 10 or more years ago.
Drugs designed specifically for AIDS have been racing through the FDA, mainly due to political pressure. Breast cancer is also making its way to the top of the priority list. But what if your illness isn't an attention getter? If you have the money, getting treatment outside the U.S. is possible.
People of means, either money or political or social means, generally get more of lots of things in this life, not just drugs, but other things. That does happen, people going elsewhere to get drugs that are not easily available in our country.
Another way to get unapproved drugs is through a research protocol which involves heavy time constraints of physicians and lots of red tape. The reason for that, the process involves applying for and receiving permission from the FDA. In Duluth, Ted Rowlands, News 6.
Are you going to clean that out any in there or not?
Yeah, I think we should. It's a big, long, tall cow at the zoo.
They're like they kind of... You guys are all by yourself? No, I had help. I just don't know where they went. Hear me?
Okay.
They tell you.
That's a lot better now, isn't it? I can scoop it out this way.
Yeah. Lance? Is anyone working? We traded. Okay. Okay.
Dig it out maybe an inch or so. Oh, okay. Recess that area.
That's correct, because I'm in the field. Also, a couple changes that we might want to make on it if it'll pass.
I'd like to try to reintroduce the 120-gallon.
Yes. Counselor Dellenberg.
Yes.
Counselor Downs. No. Counselor Hardesty. No.
Fruitless. Why continue wasting taxpayers' money on issues that the city shouldn't be involved with in the first place?
And neighborhood housing services have all been meeting.
Doug Toll is charged with aiding and abetting first-degree murder. To the public, Toll's role in the slayings of the three young men was somewhat unclear, but according to various testimony during the Warren trial, Toll may have been the one who loaded the gun. But unlike Warren, Doug Toll never fired a shot, and proving his guilt to a jury will be more difficult. Prosecutors will allege that Toll and Warren conspired on the slayings after leaving a house party on East 7th Street last March. The prosecution will contend that Toll, like Warren, was angry after one girl in his group was raped and another sexually abused. According to testimony, Warren asked Toll as they drove to get the gun, "Are you with me, Doug?" Doug's response, "Yeah." Then Warren told him, "This isn't the movies," and Toll, according to testimony, agreed. Prosecutors will also allege that Warren and Toll played God, deciding who would be killed and who would be spared. After getting the gun on the way back to the party, Warren asked Toll to dry fire the .44 Magnum out the door of the van to see if it was loaded. But how the gun actually got loaded never was clear during Warren's trial. And that's something prosecutors will have to prove. Toll's attorney, Robert Lucas, says tomorrow he'll be asking Judge Galen Wilson for a change of venue. He says there's been too much publicity over this case for Toll to get a fair trial, and he'd like to see it moved out of the area.
To work cooperatively with them on the City Street portion of it to try to offset some of the problems along that line to try to mitigate the experience.
I see Mr. Nollenberger's got his light on Lake Avenue, 5th Avenue West, Central Avenue, 40 for the state on the situation. And what the Highway Patrol is planning on doing is
and so I made a request earlier today to
use that for their income to go out and do things and what's...
I've lived on the St. Louis River all my life, and you know, walked the river with my father and enjoyed the river, so I have a very deep concern for the river.
The Citizen of the Month Award, actually I have two plaques here. One is the Citizen of the Month, and the other is, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Of particulars regarding the mayor's leave of absence and any considerations or benefits to the mayor.
I don't expect it to listen to me tonight, but I think it's a tragic mistake and it's unfair, really unfair.
across the street there, you're talking about the ambulance, Douglas County contracting out their ambulance services. Do you think that's going to result in any lack of response time or any kind of lack of care at all if it does go? If
It has been over 5 years now since the Jensens decided to explore the possibility of going into business.
It was a gradual process. It came out of necessity on a fishing trip. My ice melted in my coolers.
And he couldn't have that, so Bob and Joanne began work on what is now known as the Cool Cooler Blanket.
We came up with this material that we could put in above the contents and above the ice, but below the lid.
The result is a colder cooler. The Jensens made the decision to go into business after lots of thought and lots of legwork.
Oh yes, I think we were nervous right from the start.
I exercised my option to retire about 7 days after my earliest possible date. And this was after the patent had already been issued, so we thought, well, we're a little bit secure there and we'll go ahead and work with this project.
The Jensens are hoping to move their product from the merchandise shows into retail and department stores, and they seem to be on the right track. Already they have their product, the Cool Cooler Blanket, on the shelves at the Walmart in Duluth. If sales go well here, it won't be long until they are nationwide. With a profile of success, I'm Ted Rollins.
I lived here for a little bit over a year, funded through the HRA. When I asked them what their rate...
When I look at this, this is what you would call segregation.